Let's start. And first, I want to introduce you to our wonderful speakers, the people who made this important research possible. We have Jantine van Lisdok. Jantine is a co-founder of BIPLAS Netherlands, where she was strategic advisor until August 2024. Her PhD dissertation focused partially on young Dutch bisexual people and lack of BIPLAS inclusive policies. Through Open Visions, she works as an independent researcher and expert for national and international organizations and programs on topics related to diversity, inclusion, equality, and discrimination. Her former affiliations were the VE University in Amsterdam, the Netherlands Institute for Social Research, and Rutgers, Netherlands, where she focused on LGBTQIA equality. She is the research director for the study that we will be talking about today. Our second panelist is Zeina Pergambarzadeh. They are an Iranian researcher, lecturer, queer feminist activist based in the UK. They are co-founder and board member of Spectrum, a feminist queer organization based in France. As part of Spectrum, they co-founded the Dojanzgara website, the first and only website on bisexuality in Persian in 2015, which I think is really amazing. Their research interests include sexuality, asylum, and feminist movement. They are the senior researcher on this BIPLAS study. Then we have Hilde Fossen. She's a long-standing BIPLAS activist with an extensive love for networking. Hilde loves to connect BIPLAS and LGBTQIA people on expertise and shared interests. That's why she co-founded the informal European Bisexual Network for Activists, EuroBiNet. She has co-organized multiple EuroBiCons and brought folks together who are now leading the BIPLAS Equal project. Hilde used her unique and outstanding networking skills as the mapping coordinator in this project. Then we have Aida Marokan, who is an American queer feminist researcher specialized in grassroots community-based advocacy for LGBTQ women, prioritizing community well-being in all activism efforts. She advocates for LGBTQ women needs and issues through various programs and events, utilizing grassroots community-based approaches focused on well-being and self-care, research, and art activism. Her academic interests center on exploring the intersections of gender and sexuality, with a specific focus on the experiences of identities of LGBTQ women. Ida is also part of the research team. And our last speaker is Christian Klesse, who is a reader in the Department of Sociology in Manchester Metropolitan University and co-lead of the research group Contemporary Intimacies, Genders and Sexualities. His research interests lie in the field of gender and sexual politics, consensual non-monogamy and polyamory, queer kinship practices, transnational LGBTQ activism in Europe, BIPLAS intimacies in politics, and queer film festivals. His work has been interdisciplinary and often collaborative, and he is the author of many peer-reviewed studies in many journals, such as, for example, Sociological Review. Christian's role was as an external advisor for the study implementation procedure. Now that you know the amazing people that will be presenting today, I want to ask the first question, which would not be yet about the survey, but about the project within this study was made. Jantine, can you please tell me a little bit more about the BIPLAS Equal project?
Yes, thank you, Nadia. BIPLAS Equal is a 2-year project funded by the European Commission. It is initiated, designed, and carried out by B+ Nederland, BIPAS Netherlands, and Spectrum, the queer feminist organization based in France with an international focus. And with this project, we really try to join our forces, expertise, and experience with the goal to bring the BIPAS movement in Europe to the next level. So central for us is doing things with the community, by the community, for the community. And well, we focus on 3 things. We focus first on mapping the existing initiatives, the groups, networks that are already exist in Europe. We conduct a needs assessment. That's the survey that we speak about today. And we collect and share best practices about BIPAS activism in Europe. Secondly, we focus on capacity building, mutual learning and exchange. And thirdly, we focus on exploring and aiming to create a European BIPAS legal organization or network. And it's really exciting because it does not exist yet in Europe, while for other groups, for example, lesbian, transgender, non-binary people, queer Muslim, queer people of faith, they all have their European umbrella organization, and BIPAS people, the largest group within the rainbow community, does not have this organization network yet. So that's the ultimate focus of this project, BIPAS Equal.
Thank you so much. It sounds amazing. So you mentioned needs assessment. The survey is, yeah, a big part of that. Zainab, I want to ask you a little bit more about why it was important to conduct the survey and what methodologies did you use in the process?
So there have been different European networks for bisexuals in Europe, but they were informal. So when this idea of establishing a formal network or organization for bisexuals in Europe was discussed, we were concerned about how we can make this process democratic and inclusive, and consult activists and organizations who are active in Europe. So we decided to have this survey so we can hear from everyone, and this was an online survey, and we collected the data during September and October last year. And we only had the survey in English language, but we tried to make it as inclusive as possible. So it was simple English, and we tried to assist people in different way to be able to translate it, and also for people who had different needs. And we sent a unique link to each participant, and we asked from each organization to only fill it once. And as we will discuss later, we had a broad definition of Europe. So we try to include as many countries as possible, and we also try to ask similar questions that have been asked before in studies about LGBT groups or trans group, lesbian groups, so we can compare the result with those previous studies. And of course, we were concerned about security and anonymity of the participants, and we tried to make it as safe as possible during the collecting data, storing data, and analyzing and publishing the data.
That sounds amazing. So many things to think about: security, accessibility, the potential for future comparison. I think it's amazing and outstanding work how it turned out. going a little bit more to the results, the mapping resulted in finding 125 BioPlus initiatives, which is a lot. To be honest, I could think maybe of 15 on the top of my head. So Hildi, you are the mapping coordinator. I want to ask you, how were you able to find so many groups and people? And maybe what stood out for you in the mapping process, but also in the maybe visibility of those groups and people?
Yeah, hi, Hildy here. I did the mapping, and I'm a long-term activist, so I already knew the number of, Nadja, that you were telling, like 50 organizations. And while I started, I said to Jantien, we said, if we can get about 80 organizations, then we're already happy. It turned out that I became that super greedy desk research bisexual and pansexual person. So at the end, we had 235 invitees of people who could join the survey questionnaire. So that was a huge turnout. How I did it, it was like snowball effect. Like I knew the web pages, I started mapping them. And of course, we have a lot of new social media. Striking was how many people and groups there are funded in on Instagram and Telegram. And a lot of people helped me, of course, because I asked a lot to them. Like I had a tremendous help from Sam because they told me, well, Hildy, there is a francophone by Palm network. I didn't know about that. And it was super nice to hear all the renewing. I also had a tremendous help of Janne from Malmö. And they is she has an informal Nordic by Plus network, and that was also super helpful. So those intermediate persons helped me a lot to finally get these high numbers of turnout. Yeah, so it was a lot of when I heard in April last year that the research and the project was about to start, then I immediately knew, like, okay, so the mapping is on. So I immediately started. I had a few months, so I've been doing this work more than 20 years, I think 25 years. I lost count. So the networking I did during all those years, I had to put intensely effective in a few months. So it was a giant race against the clock because the survey people said, yeah, you have a deadline on this. Oh, I'm good at deadlines. So this is, at least for this topic, I was very good. So yeah, that was very helpful. Another thing that was striking was the way I also requested groups and like, can you please suggest the contact person and contact information for BiPlus Equal? So this is, you know, for the networking in future perspectives. And a lot of groups have a horizontal structure, and I didn't expect that. And I really enjoyed it. Like, we have a horizontal structure. You have to use a general email address, and we discuss when you're not around what we are going to do. So I had fun with that because that also was I really like it when it's renewing for me, and it was a challenge in my head, like, oh, I wanted one person and I get a team. Okay, how does that work? So in future perspective, yeah, we'll see how that works. I also was on the lookout for pansexual, panromantic specific groups. And I did find them, but not in the way like more by plus groups are have, you know, how structured with meetups, and I did not find them. But what I found was years ago, we had the groups had the names like Bisexual Network or Bisexual and then the city name. And now more and more groups choose to be bi plus, choose to be pan bi. A new group in Luxembourg, for example, has the name pan bi. And I really liked all the development in the name giving of the groups. And I have to check. Yeah, that was about it.
Thank you very much, Hildy. It's really nice to hear that while doing something that you are so familiar with, like within for 20, 25 years, you can still be surprised and you can still learn something from the process.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I enjoyed it a lot because at the end, for example, I made fun with Jantine. I said, Jantine, I'm now writing in Catalan. I can't do Spanish and I not can't do Catalan, but it just happened. Like I just wanted so badly all the contact information that I used Google Translate and DeepL and to get in-depth information of the organization so that I succeeded in that.
That's some mad dedication. Respect for that.
Mm.
Ida, question to you. This plethora of initiatives, they indicated they have a variety of activities that they do. Please tell us a little bit more about these activities and maybe some best practices if there were some to share.
Thank you, Nadia. Hi, everyone. So I will try to mention all the common activities organized by participants. But this will be only a short overview because there is lots of information. So the participants engage in a wide range of activities that serve mostly three interconnected goals. The one is fostering community, another one is raising awareness, and also advocating for inclusion and equity. So community organizing activities are the most common one. They are kind of at the heart of BIPLAS activism. This is particularly significant given the invisibility and erasure that BIPLAS people often face both within the broader LGBTQIA plus community and society at large. So the most common activity within this category is hosting regular BIPLAS meetups. These gatherings create safe spaces where BIPLAS individuals can connect, share experiences without fear of judgment and questioning. So for many, this meetups serves much more than a casual social event. They usually function as an informal peer support group. And I think this addresses the profound need for belonging and emotional safety. So another core activities are the awareness raising activities about BIPLAS identities. Awareness efforts often address the challenges of BIPLAS erasure and biphobia, and they aim to make BIPLAS people and their needs more visible within.
We have
Gain broader LGBTQI plus community and broader society. BIPLAS history, research, motivation posts. So I see in the chat that my voice is cutting, right?
Yes, a little bit there. You were gone for like 20 seconds. But now
Is it okay now? If
now
I
you're
continue?
back. Yes. Welcome back.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that. So awareness raising publications or posts often take the form of storytelling, where personal narratives illustrate the diversity of BIPLAS experiences and the systemic challenges faced by the community. Another forms of activities that participants mentions are partnerships and collaborations with local and national LGBTQI plus organizations Less common are the cooperations between BIPLAS organizations. And sometimes they cooperate with queer-friendly spaces like bars and cafes, and they usually utilize the spaces of these bars and cafes to organize the meetups. So these partnerships serve for multiple purposes, from organizing community building events, as I said, to promoting BIPLAS inclusivity within larger advocacy efforts. So partnerships with larger LGBTQI plus organizations mostly aim to address the BIPLAS erasure within these spaces, but also to push the BIPLAS agendas, let's say. Speaking about activities, I would also like to mention the activities organized within Pride events. And these activities aimed at increasing BIPLAS visibility within the broader Pride activities. So many individuals or also small groups may struggle to gain visibility in such large events on their own. So they prefer to participate as a group, which amplifies their presence and sends a powerful message of solidarity. And they become also more visible as BIPLAS people. But these activities also foster sense of belonging within the BIPLAS community. Uh, and last but not least, I would like to talk about the service provision, which is unfortunately, um, this has not been mentioned like very often. However, also there are only fewer BIPLAS groups or organizations who provide psychosocial support and legal services. BIPLAS people have somehow opportunities to receive these services, and often these services are provided in within larger LGBTQI plus organizations who also offer this support to BIPLAS people. So there is no specific service provision activities organized for BIPLAS communities. So in many cases, BIPLAS groups act as volunteer-led collectives, and sometimes they are very small groups within broader LGBTQI plus organizations where they organize BIPLAS specific activities while also advocating for a systemic change. So in this sense, the activities are very limited. And as you can see, the activities that are more popular are the ones who need less resources or that they are possible to organize having only community willingness to participate. So just shortly about the best practices, they usually identify community organizing activities as best practice, but also some of them mention the creation of BIPLAS only spaces so that they can feel safe, come together, and not only share about their issues, but find ways to like combat these issues. Another best practice is the public facing initiatives, something that I was just shared about pride groups, for example. By bringing BIPLAS experiences into public view, these activities not only confront the BIPLAS erasure, but also again build the sense of belonging, also increase the visibility. Lastly, they mentioned like the larger events like BIPLAS conferences or forums as one of the most effective activities because they combine social connection with education, activist strategy development, and personal growth through like various workshops and discussions. Yeah, I think that's it from
Thank you very much. I mean, that sounds like a lot. I would allow myself a follow-up question on that because you mentioned mostly community building, but also partnerships for the advocacy. So I'm missing a little bit the advocacy part, and the study also showed that bi groups are way less focused on advocacy compared to LGBTQIA organizations. Why do you think this might be the case, and why is it important to have specific bi+ advocacy?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think this is a very important question to consider. So, advocacy is not one of the most common activities that is being organized by bi+ groups, but at the same time, it is the participants still highlight the need to do bi+ political advocacy. So, according to the participants, there are still some important efforts happening, especially in three main areas. And I would say these areas are the inclusive policies, so policy making and litigation, also research, and again, awareness raising. So some groups advocate for policies that are to be more inclusive for bi+ people. This mostly includes the legislations that targets general, broader LGBTQI plus needs. So bi+ groups try to work with government or local authorities, but also with LGBT organizations to push so that these legislations can be inclusive and highlight bi+ people's needs and issues. Research also plays a big role in advocacy because there is very limited studies on the experiences of bi+ people. So we first need to gather data so that we can push for a change. And this data that is being created through the researches and these reports are usually shared with policymakers and LGBT organizations so that they can use it. Lastly, awareness raising is a vital part of advocacy. So groups usually organize visibility campaigns, media appearances, and participations in public events so that they can again make bi+ voices and experiences visible. I would like to highlight that despite these efforts, many groups lack the resources to expand their advocacy work. So to do advocacy, specifically political advocacy, groups need money, and there are very limited financial resources available for bi+ groups. So to conclude, I would like to say that there is a growing need for political advocacy for bi+ issues, but the financial resources are limiting this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Aida, for the reply. We will hear about the financial situation in a second, but before, I want to address what you said about the limited studies on bi+ people. Christian, you are a person who is majorly involved in research and in the academic field. Please share from your perspective what was interesting in the results of the study, but also what struggles and opportunities do you see on the way to publish any bi+ related research?
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Nadia, for this question. I mean, I think in terms of the academic significance of this research, the first thing I would like to say is that this is the first large-scale study on bisexual, bi+ activism in the wider European region. Thanks to Hilde's amazing mapping activities, a lot of organizations have been identified, have participated in the research, and also a lot of individual bi activists have participated in the research. So this is a kind of a novel, very needed piece of knowledge. And also from the academic point of view, I think it's exceptional and very good practice that this research has been built into a wider strategy of ultimately doing something about mobilizing further So this survey has been conducted to check the ground and to test the willingness and test the need for engaging in further transnational networking across the European region. So this report is very, very important, and yeah, I applaud the research team and the organizations who have made this piece of research possible. Another thing I think which struck out for me reading the research is, let's say, an observation which I seem to share with other people on that panel. Aida has already talked about that, which is the very, very strong emphasis on community building, raising awareness, raising visibility within these, different groups and organizations which have participated in that research. So there seems to be a stronger emphasis on community building as compared to advocacy, which is a bit like, let's say an observation. A lot of researchers, in particular researchers who did research into qualitative research into activist cultures across Europe, have emphasized. I think, again, this research is kind of novel and interesting because it also looks at these aspects of objectives alongside an investigation in, let's say, organizations and groups, resources, their involvement in wider coalitions and cooperations and so on. So it is, worthwhile to speculate about, whether, as for example, Aida has just suggested, the fact that 48% of the research of the groups who participated in the research don't have access to any funding also plays a role in the fact that they do not develop a strongly articulated advocacy agenda. At the same time, I think we need to be careful to read too much into this research at the same time. It may well be the case that some activists also do not have an interest in applying for funding, do not want to build funded organizations. And some of the verbatim quotes in the study also sort of, in hint towards that presence, that voice within wider BI+ activism across Europe. I think also important to say, this research also, for the first time brings in and a kind of extended knowledge about activist groups and activist agendas in Central and Eastern Europe, and also a significant body of work, a body of organizations from Southern Europe, challenging that kind of, let's say, Western and Northern European bias in research into bisexual activism. I'm not sure how I am in time. I would maybe add one other interesting observation, if that's fine. Another maybe not so surprising, but still surprising and also sad observation has been that this research, which first of all documented that bi activists as individuals, as small groups, and as larger organizations tend to cooperate extensively with other organizations. They cooperate with LGBTQIA+ organizations, they cooperate with trade unions, some of them cooperate with parties, some cooperate with other social movement groups around single issue campaigns, some of them cooperate with anti-racist groups, and so on. However, while most of the participants in the study, whether they spoke for groups or individuals, suggested that they learn a lot, that they exchange resources, and that they have very good experiences with working with others, there seems to be less emphasis on positive experience of working with LGBTQI plus organizations. And this is kind of, while at the same time, most participants seem to share the insight that yes, LGBTQ culture and has opened up, there still seems to be, let's say, an element of resentment, a hurt feeling of sort of not feeling belonging and having the most accentuated set of conflicts with with activist partners, with whom I think many bi-plus groups and activists have historically and kind of, felt a strong affinity with. So I think it takes us, maybe back to that kind of crisis of, sort of feeling expelled from a kind of, let's say, activist context, which feels very, very close to the heart to many participants in the studies. And it's also interesting that I think 84% of the participants sort of, see that one of the main objectives of bi-plus activism in Europe today is to increase the inclusion in LGBTQIA plus culture.
Thank you very much, Christian. I think we can also see some interesting connection between what Ida told us about, that community building activities are one of the prevalent ones, one of the best practices. And at the same time, we have the experience of not always positive when collaborating with LGBTQI organizations. And it results in exactly what you said, Christian, that there is a lack of belonging. So places to belong are created by the bi-plus community. I want to come back to the question that was raised twice already about finances, about the money. We see that the budgets for bi-plus groups are quite low. What can you tell me about the finance situation, and do you have any ideas why the resources are scarcer compared to other movements? Jantine, Zeynep, maybe as like the heads of the research, feel free to take the mic.
Thanks. Yes, it was already raised by both Ida and Christian about, well, the financial situation of many bi-plus groups is not very flourishing or positive. About half of the active bi-plus groups do not have any budget. 29% have less than 5,000, which is also not a lot. And the difference with LGBTI organizations in Europe is huge. We could compare because we asked exactly the same questions as ILGA Europe did in their survey among LGBTI groups in 2020. And then, well, it shows that in the last year, 76 of the active bi-plus groups had a smaller budget than 5,000 euro compared to 17% of LGBTI groups. So that is a huge difference. And also when we only focus on subpopulations within LGBTQI plus groups, 40% of them, so for example, transgender non-binary people or lesbian, bi, trans, queer women, of those groups in Europe, 40% had budgets less than 20,000 euro compared to 90% of bi-plus groups in our survey. So that's also a huge difference. And okay, I should add also that for the entire number of bi-plus groups, the financial situation is not so positive, but it is even worse in Eastern Europe, and in particularly Eastern Europe, none of the bi-plus groups had budget, and in Southern Europe it was most of them who did not have any budget. So that's about the finance, but Zeynep can add a bit about people, which is important too.
Took the words out of my mouth. That's perfect, because my next question would be exactly about that. How about the human resources? What is the situation there?
So since most of the BI groups don't have any funding, they cannot employ anyone. So they have to rely on volunteer works. And like 12% of BI groups that participated in our research had funding, which is 4 out of 39. But if we compare it with LGBT groups and subgroups, we can see the difference again. 67% of LGBTI groups, according to ILGA research, have had paid staff, and 60% of trans and gender non-conforming groups. And most of these all of these 4 BI groups who had any paid staff were in north and west of Europe again, because those are the ones who have funding. And if we go more into details of what kind of employment they have, 2 BI groups had less than 1 full-time employee. One had between 2 and 3 employees, and one had between 4 and 6 employees. Again, we could compare it with lesbian groups according to ELC research. And that research, which was done in 2019, shows that majority of lesbian groups had 1 or 2 employee, and 5 had had 3 to 10 long-term staff. So in such a situation, they have limited time and energy, and as Ida mentioned, they are not able to do activities that are needed. Like they cannot provide any professional care, or they cannot document human rights violation. And they don't even often have any permanent space, so they can only use temporary events. And we didn't ask specifically why they have not applied for funding, but we found another research in the UK that has asked the same question from BI groups in this country, and it seems that many BI groups do not apply for funding because they have low expectation of getting it. They don't have time and energy, and then they are aware of the funders' assumption that since LGBT groups have funding, they can cover BI people as well. But we know that not all the LGBT groups are completely BI inclusive. So it seems that there is this vicious cycle that BI groups don't have funding, and because they don't have funding, they don't have time and energy and resources to apply for the funding.
So it's a closed circle, as always. If you have money, you can hire someone. If you have people, they can look for money, and it is all very, very connected. About the connection, the study was conducted within the BI Plus Equal project, and the results have also shown that there is a big demand for a pan-European organization, particularly to facilitate things like exchange, maybe to teach each other something, but also capacity building and advocacy. How, like in your opinion, how can a European organization contribute to a stronger BI Plus community and improve the BI Plus inclusion? Also, so feel free to grab the floor, whoever wants to answer, but I also encourage our participants to share in the chat what are your thoughts on that, on impressions? Jentine. Jentine, did you want to answer? Because I see that you unmuted yourself.
Yes, I was still unmuted, but yeah, I could give a start, and I hope that the audience will have very good suggestions. Well, I think it's mostly on in two ways. It is the community building and strengthening our BIPLUS civil society. That's an important one. This is so not only on local national level, but also having this European organization. It might help in resources, sharing these resources, in exchanging knowledge and expertise together, in learning from each other, which is also positive for our morale, which is sometimes needed too. So that's on the one hand, and on the other hand, this is what participants mentioned. This European organization is important to address at the European level BIPLUS, erasure, discrimination, violence, inclusive policies, inclusive research, etc. This is something that individual national or local organizations cannot do, but the European organization can do that. And they can also start and collaborate also more with other platforms and networks.
Thank you, Jentine. Hilde, Zainab, Christian, Ida, do you want to add something about your thoughts on a pan-European organization? Hilde.
Yeah, what I hear is that organizations, and it doesn't matter which, if they are LGBT focused or not, they would like to hear more about knowledge about BIPLUS people. So, for example, a European organization can make fact sheets about BIPLUS and asylum. In February, BIPLUS will host a workshop, a session on BIPLUS and asylum, but Zainab can elaborate on that. Yeah, so sharing the knowledge, and keeping that up to date so that people have always the facts, because knowledge is power, the facts on where they can focus their advocacy on. So that would be great. And what I also see in other European organizations that focus on a target group, like, for example, lesbian and queer women, start collecting money so you can re-grant it to smaller groups and support them in that way. Yeah, so much to I have a lot of ideas, so but a lot of it possible, but maybe some other people would like to add their dreams and wishes.
We have definitely also wonderful ideas coming in the chat. Participants, you can all read that. Aida, yes, please.
Yes, I just wanted to add two small things. The first one, I really like the idea of pan-European organization, not just a European organization. And I love the way how we see Europe also when creating the survey, because Europe is not the countries within the EU as well, but like it can include broader geography. So having a pan-European BIPLUS organization, I think, can be also a motivation for those BIPLUS people who live in smaller countries where LGBT movement or activism is not very popular, or do not have lots of resources um, to continue its activities. So this can be a motivation for those who do not even see the need, or they think it is too risky to create a BIPLUS group to advocate for BIPLUS people, to actually do it. So I think this is not only a way to show and make BIPLUS people experiences visible, but with activists to start their BIPLUS activism.
Thank you very much. And we can already see this power of connection that people are suggesting in the chat that, hey, if you want somebody to connect in my region, please write me. That's exactly what we are talking about. Christian.
Yeah, what I, find so impressive, from the research side is that, this survey, in a way, started a process of kind of gathering knowledge and creating an infrastructure for future exchange. So I think from my point of view, it would be wonderful if an organization emerges from this process, that it is a kind of, let's say, a grassroots-based organization which continues a kind of transnational, international exchange between different activist clusters, rather than just developing policy, rather than just creating educational material. Because I think, the scarce knowledge we have about bisexual politics so far is sort of, bisexual movements differ in each and different country, even if they may share features. People do activism under very, very different conditions. And Aida just emphasized that. In some countries, it is very, very risky to, engage in any kind of bi plus or LGBTQIA plus activism and so on. So I would hope that if that kind of organization building process continues as a networking process, these groups will learn from each other, possibly kind of broaden, the horizon of everybody involved. And I would suggest that this possibly would also bring, certain advocacy issues which are not so high on the agenda right now, such as human rights issues and so on, to the fore. So I think, in particular, because a lot of organizations, new organizations, sort of have been, or call it groups, organizations, have kind of, sort of sprung up in Central and Eastern Europe, for example. I think it's important that these voices are heard and central in, creating a cross-trans pan-European organization.
Absolutely. So to wrap up this first part, we have heard a lot about the activities, what is important, what are the struggles, what are the opportunities. So I would like to end with a question about the recommendations. What were the main recommendations in the survey based on those results? Jantine, can you share with us the outcomes?
Yes, if you can put on the slides, I would like to do this with Zainab. So Zainab could start.
Yeah. So we had three main recommendations, and we addressed those recommendations to funders, policymakers, researchers, LGBTQI groups, and bi groups. The first one was a stronger and more inclusive bi plus and LGBTQI plus communities. So we asked them to be aware of the risk of underrepresentation, invisibility, and marginalization at local, national, and international level. In terms of by individuals, we mentioned discrimination based on age, gender, ethnicity, and also we were aware of people who use different terminologies for identifying, for example, pan group that we discussed earlier. And at the European level, we mentioned Eastern European countries, Southern European countries, and also countries that are not usually considered as part of Europe, but we were keen to include them in this research. And since we were concerned about funding, we recommended that we need to provide both long-term funding and also short-term for projects, again in local, national, and international level, and prioritize by groups and individuals as a target group in funding criteria and called. And at the end, consider by inclusivity as a funding requirement when we assess any project for funding.
Yes. The second recommendation focuses on facilitating alliance building, collaborations, and partnerships. We had several recommendations there, and I will summarize some of them. For BI+ groups and activists, and BI+ activists, it's needed that there will be more exchange of best practices on community building and on strengthening BI+ civil society. So that's actually more collaborations, alliance building among BI+ groups and activists. It's also needed to encourage and facilitate capacity building there. So focused on alliance building, collaboration, and partnerships, particularly also international partnerships, because this is a very strategic way to enhance impact, effectiveness, and leverage, as Ida mentioned earlier. Well, regarding LGBTQIA+ organizations, subpopulations, and allies, we recommend that they get better educated about BI+ people and their stigma, discrimination, violence, and erasure. So they become more inclusive, and they understand the urgency better to collaborate. This survey showed that there is a bit of a space for improvement also, as Christian told. Then the third recommendation that focuses on BI+ inclusive legislation, policies, research, and advocacy. Here it would, we recommend that there will be spaces to learn and to exchange best practices in Europe on how to do BI+ equality, BI+ equality advocacy, how to push for inclusive legislation, what are inclusive legislations and policies, how to do more inclusive research, and also how to advocate for more inclusive research. And this is relevant both for BI+ groups, but also for LGBTQI+ groups and allies to learn more about and share more about this. Also in the policy making process, we recommend that BI+ activists and groups become more visible in these processes and are better represented, similar to how other LGBTQI+ subpopulations are already represented there. Lastly, I mentioned the importance of research and also the importance of in BI+ inclusive research. And this is actually a workshop that we will give or provide on April 24. So how to do inclusive research and also how to advocate for BI+ inclusive research.
And that's a wonderful note to end the first part of our event with a nice outlook for the future, with an actual active suggestion how to implement the recommendations. I think that is an important part between theory and practice, and here we have a wonderful example how to do that. So with that, we will end the first part.